Okay, hi, grade 11. This is the introduction to the extended essay. We're going to go over a few little things in this video. First of all, just about the information, about what the extended essay is and what it counts for, a little bit about the grading. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the timeline of what's coming up next for you. We'll then talk all about kind of picking your topic and submitting your research question proposal and what you have to do in the next few weeks. So, in the session that we had in person, I asked you guys to think about kind of the information about extended essay. So just kind of a few things. We do use a little bit of abbreviation. So the first one, we just call it the EE quite often. So EE, extended essay. I'll often talk later when we start doing reflections. We'll talk about the RPPF. That's the Reflections on Planning and Progress form. You can find that on ManageBack under just Planning and Progress form. It's a little bit confusing as there's another section that says Research Reflectors Space, but this, we just like say the RPPF and you will submit this under Planning and Progress form. Sometimes in emails, I'll also just be writing WS, that'll just mean World Studies. So sometimes I'll be given information that might just be on World Studies types of essays. So in terms of like, what is it? It is a 4,000 word essay and it's based upon independent research, okay? It's a chance for the IB says to give you, it's a chance from the IB to give you sometimes to kind of do some research on what you're interested in. You also have, in addition to this 4,000 word essay, you have to also write 3 reflections, and these 3 reflections should add up to about 500 words. In total, with the research and the writing of the essay, the IB's guidance has said it should take you around about 40 hours. So it isn't something that you can like rush in like 1 week or in a night. It has to be over a longer period of time, which is why we're launching it now. Gives you some time to do some reading, some time to sort of think about the topics, and then time to actually collect your research, whether that be finding sources, reading text, conducting any interviews, getting experiments done if you need to do that, or simulations. But that kind of that research space takes a substantial amount of time. And then the writing of it, writing 4,000 words, it sounds like quite a lot. But sometimes for a lot of students, they're actually having to try and cut it down because they get so invested with the research. We sort of say here at VIS that you can do your EE in a few different ways. So the first one is that we would recommend you pick one of your higher levels. Doesn't mean that you can't do it in an SL. Sometimes we have had students do it in an SL subject because they're still really passionate about a topic, but it's not something that we typically recommend. We typically say do it in your higher level because it is going to help you. The other version that you can do is something called World Studies, which is an interdisciplinary essay. And that's where you take 2 subjects typically. Sometimes we say more, but we find that you get a little bit lost if you do more than 2 subjects. But we sort of say you take 2 subjects and you answer the question using both of them to help you with this. And it has to be all around a global theme. We'll talk a little bit about this later. In terms of grades, and this is the current grading for it. So it's an A, it's all out of 34. So an A is 27, a B is 21, C is 14, D is 7. And we'll talk about this E criteria as well. There's a lot of useful people to help you. Specifically, you've got myself that you can come and find. I'm up in the science office, so Miss Workman. You can also ask Mr. Bancroft. He's got a wealth of knowledge all about research. He's got great databases and places to show you. He's also got some really good things about structuring essays. So you can always talk to Mr. Bancroft in the library. Miss Linnell as well in the IB office, and Ms. Weizsäcker. And also the main person that you will talk to will be your supervisor, and you'll each have your own supervisor, and that will be decided later. So a little bit about the marking. We said it's assessed through this 4,000 word essay and also through the 3 written reflections. The written reflections come under this criteria E of engagement. The IB wants to actually award you marks for seeing how engaged you were with the process, but also how engaged were you with the research, making sure this work is your own, but also seeing that it's like your own work, but also that you were committed to this and that you were learning from this and that you were reflecting about yourself. We also have marks for presentation. I like to call these easy marks. We've got a template to help you with structure and layout. We've got different guidelines and guidances on the type of essay that you'll be writing. The big three criteria here, so it's 6 marks, 6 marks, and 12 marks, is focus and method. So coming up with your topic, deciding your research question, explaining how you're going to answer it. Criterion B is about your knowledge and understanding. So that's specifically like about the subject content. Have you shown knowledge and understanding of what you've been researching into? And then the last one being critical thinking is one of the harder ones to kind of like show marks in. But it's all to do with the level of research and the analysis of your research, of being really critical of not just what you found out, but also of yourself and like the sources that you have used. And this one we'll talk about in the next session when we do a research focus session in February. So again, you can just have a little sort of see through here of the different marks that are awarded. So I've kind of said, why do the extended essay? You don't have a choice. You have to do it if you're doing the diploma course. But it does count for extra points. And some students really like that when applying for universities. It helps them get a few extra points in there. And you can see there's called the TOK Extended Essay Matrix. So with TOK, depending on the grade you get, it could add for a maximum of 3 points if you get an A and an A or an A and a B. If you get like C grades and B grades, you start coming into the 2s. Sometimes with the Ds as well, maybe going into 1 or 0. But the big thing we're seeing here is the grade E. Grade E is an automatic failing condition. So this means if you got an A in TOK but an E in your extended essay, it is a failing condition, but that means you actually completely would fail the diploma. I've never had this happen. Don't intend on your grade being the first, but it is something that you need to be smart with. You need to make sure you're keeping up with the deadlines. You need to keep in touch with your supervisors and make sure you are on track. Just to point out, it's 0 to 6 grades, 0 to 6 marks for you to get an E grade. If you look here, you can get 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, that's 5. So we need a couple of extra marks, maybe like presentation, engagement, we can get over that 6 quite easily. But I do have students that sometimes get a failing grade on the draft. So please don't do that. Please keep up with everything. All right. Okay. So as I said before, you're going to be coming up with some proposals about the different subjects that you are thinking of. If you need some information, I've linked it into our Google Classroom, but you have got the extended essay website. And you can sort of talk about choosing it, and there's a lot of stuff down here. But the big thing, if you want to look at the different subjects, you, for example, might go into group 4, so that's my one, the sciences, and you've got some information on here about the choosing the topics, also some guidance on it. There's also the subject report and an example essay that's been released by the IB, sorry. So you can also see that there are some other subjects that have a little bit more information with them, like for example suitability. For example, in physics it tells you that there are inappropriate topics such as quantum computers and black holes, so they sort of try and give you guidance of what you should not be doing. But I would spend a little bit of time reading through that. I've seen the ones you are interested in first of all. Okay, let me go back to my presentation. So I'm going to ask that you submit 2 proposals to the IB office. Okay, please note that we're just checking to see, like, have you filled in the right things? Have you got an idea? I'm not going to be able to say if that idea is completely appropriate, for example, in English or in history. Your history supervisor would be able to talk to you about that in a bit more detail. So it's a first draft of a proposal, and that might develop a bit more when having a conversation with a supervisor there. I have got 137 of you in the grade, so I am going to ask that you all submit at least 2 different proposals. This is so that hopefully we can get you paired up with a first and second choice, your first choice or your second choice. All right, we do have a limited number of supervisors, and it is a really difficult job trying to get everybody paired up. So if you're a little bit more proactive, the earlier you put your proposal in, the more likely you are to get your first choice. So the order it goes is you submit the proposal. Myself, Miss Linnell, Miss Vitek will check them. We'll then send you a message saying, yep, you are approved. And at that point, then you can approach a supervisor. Please don't go up to the supervisor first and say, I want you to be my supervisor. please wait to go with the proposal. I've told supervisors that you should be coming with a proposal to them with this checked stamp from us, okay? It's just really hard. Sometimes supervisors just feel really put on the spot, and they have a lot of people, and sometimes they have to say no. So please make their life just a little bit easier by going to them with the checked proposal, the confirmed proposal from us, okay? So the other little one then was world studies. As I said before, it's an interdisciplinary essay. It's a really great way for students to kind of research something that they're really interested in that has like a global context. I would say if you're doing this, you need to be motivated because you have to look at it through two different lenses. So looking at it with two subjects, and you only get one supervisor. So for example, last year I had a student who was doing a physics and art or visual art extended essay, and they were looking at the environmental sustainability. So they were looking at the architecture and design of something called a passive house, where they look at the physics behind what makes up a passive house and what's required for it, and how did that have an impact on the architecture of the building, and did that restrict design limits. So they were using the two subjects to do that. Now, I was their supervisor in physics. I can't give them necessarily the best advice on the visual arts. They can talk to their visual art teacher, but it's not a supervisor, so they're not going to be spending the same amount of time with them. So that student had to still be quite motivated to get a lot of stuff done with the visual art on them by themselves. So just be aware of that if you are considering world studies. It is, though, a really nice type of essay. You can see the categories here: science, technology and society, cultural, language and identity, conflict, peace, security, equality, inequality, health and development, environmental, economic sustainability. I know we've got quite a few teachers who are quite passionate about world studies as well. Miss Leggett, Mr. Morling have also had a lot of experience with these if you want to ever chat with them. So the next thing that, if you weren't in the session, you should have already done this if you were in the session, but if not, can you make sure it's on Google Classroom, but can you bookmark an extended essay sort of folder on your internet browser, and can you link the extended essay website, because this is your go-to. Also, you want to start making a Google folder of extended essay, so you've got places to keep track of your resources. I think the biggest sort of feedback from grade 12 is that they needed to keep on top of their research in some sort of shape or form, so they often found a document and they could just paste in the links that they found. I will be using ManageBack for everything. So for submissions, for reflections, I'm going to be tracking you guys with red and green flags, and also using the calendar for putting up kind of key dates as well. Again, just in terms of VIS, if you are behind on an extended essay and your supervisor puts you onto a red flag, that means that you are going to be losing your privileges. So again, please keep on top of that. I'll also always be around. You can come up to the science office anytime to ask me questions, drop me an email. But if you need a specific time that I'm guaranteed to be there, Monday, period 7 in lab 232, I will make sure that I am always there just in case you need me. But again, you can come at any point. So for us, just some dates and timelines coming up. This is for sort of 2024. And you can see we've got a World Studies information session happening next week. The planning form has to be in after Christmas. Again, once you've had that planning form approved, then you can start asking supervisors. We're hoping to have supervisors confirmed by Monday of kind of like 2 weeks after that. And then you're going to spend the next 2 weeks having that first meeting with them. Kind of in February, then we're going to be doing a research skills and getting you guys kind of prepared for what is the different types of research and what sort of research are we going to be looking for, and where are the appropriate places to find sources and what makes up appropriate sources. So our plan: submit the research proposal before you approach supervisor. Once you've confirmed, all right, we're going to sort of get you with a supervisor matched up. And then what I want you to do is go to ManageBack in the EE section. So under proposal section, you're going to add the topic, your sort of vague research question at this point, and your supervisor. And please also add in your proposal document. Okay, you can take a picture of this, or if you've done it digitally, just upload the PDF. All right, so proposal documents. We have two different types. The first one is subject specific, and the second one is if you are looking at a world studies. If you are doing the world studies one, I will go through this in the world studies meeting with you all, or the world studies session. There's also another video about world studies. So for subject specific, this is what we are looking at. And in terms of like the proposal, we're going to come up with like, what is your research questions? Will probably be quite broad and vague at this point. And during the research section of the extended essay, you narrow this down and focus this research question. So the first thing is we're looking at maybe the topic. So for example, in physics, it might be electromagnetism. In history, could be like, the Second World War. But we're looking at a specific topic and then coming up with your research question. So what you then want to give me is like a little bit of an overview of the topic that you're investigating, but also kind of the reason why you want to do that. Having some justification in will really help with that engagement. We sometimes find that helps with this is also trying to think about, well, what's the purpose of this? Why do I want to actually study it? What is the worthiness of this? Is there some real world context? Okay. Any sort of related research that you've found so far that's going to help you with it. So just having a little check just to make sure there is some research out there as well, because you don't want to be having to have a research question on something that you can't find any research from. So just the beginning stage of just, have you managed to find something about this? I then want to sort of see a little kind of like overview of just like, well, how am I going to try to answer that research question? I don't need a full method or analysis. It might be, okay, I'm going to use maybe 2 or 3 sources. I'm going to try and analyze this from this lens. I'm going to maybe try and do an experiment with this, or I'm going to try and do some surveys. I want to know kind of like an overview of how you think you're going to answer that research question. And then point as well, this is kind of a very, very scientific one, but what's kind of related theory? So kind of like that you would need to understand this. So you might be thinking, oh, this is something that I haven't yet learned in this, so I need to understand this theory first before being able to answer this research question. Or again, if you've learned about it in class, what are the kind of main things that you need to find out or have learned about to be able to answer that research question? So it starts putting things down, and it gives you a really good place to talk to your supervisor about when you have that first meeting with them. Because they might say to you, do you know what, I would change that method, I would be looking at it from this way. Or they might say, well, you've got this in, but actually we need to add this and this as well. Or they might say to you, do you know what, this research question, there isn't much research out there, it's going to be really hard for us to do, let's try and adapt this question somehow. So you've got a bit of a space to try and come up with that research proposal. Right, so what to do now? If you don't have any ideas, please go to the website and look at the Choosing EE document. If you have some ideas but you're not quite sure on the subjects, please go and look at the subject guidance. But if you already have a proposal, fantastic. Can you get that proposal form sorted and in as soon as possible? I will then be sending you an email to confirm, and then you can start asking your supervisors. All right, thank you for listening. Sorry it was quite long, and if you have any questions, please always come and find me up in the science office or my email. You can always email me at sworkman@vis.ac.at. All right. Thank you, guys.